let's ask a guy who knows firsthand what it's like to run a club as a point guard, who Dave Buer says is one of the best players he's ever played with. Let's bring him on. His name is Daryl McDonald, and I'm going to call him, if it's okay, I'm going to call you DMAC. Is that okay? Because Wikipedia told me that it was.
Yeah, that's all right.
That's it, Dave. Yeah. What up, Dave?
Yeah. How are you?
Hey man, thanks for being on. My name's Rick Turner. I go back with Mr. Buer a long time, longer than either one of us would like to admit, really. And I've taken on this challenge of trying to bring Jamaica basketball on the international stage, and I appreciate you jumping on with us. And
no problem.
Yeah, and I just kind of want to hear. Tell me, I saw a little bit. You grew up in New York, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Grew up in Harlem.
Yeah. So you ran into a lot of Jamaicans, because that population in New York is big time, isn't it?
It's big. Yeah, it's big. As like before I came out here, like it was actually, it was getting really, like where I live at, like right around the corner. It was just a bunch of them. You know what I mean? Like it was almost like they was taking over. It was that many of them. You know what I mean? But like sport-wise, they wasn't doing a lot of sport. Yeah. You know, what they was doing was, I would say, illegal. But you know, they that's how they made their living. But they, you know, it was all pretty cool though. Like there was never no problems or things like that. So I grew up around a lot of them.
How did you? What's your road to Australia? You're a long way from home, man.
Yeah, 26 years now.
Yeah.
You know, came out here in '94, and you know, my road is a. I've never really talked about it. It's an interesting one, because I was one of those kids that I just, you know, don't want to go to school, and, you know, hanging out in the game rooms and things like that. So I got kicked out of high school. You know, going to hang out in the park. Like I go to school, but never go, and go hang out in the park all day, then go home. I was doing that I did that for like a whole year. And then, you know, my mother found out, and she wasn't happy. So I ended up getting kicked out of school. So I ended up going to like an alternative school. So I ended up in an alternative school, and you know, wasn't the same. The basketball wasn't the same as regular high school basketball in the States at that time. But I was still hooping. You know what I mean? And I got lucky, because I played in the summer league in New York, like Rucker Park, and before it was at Rucker Park, it was on 145th Street and Lenox Avenue. I grew up on 145th and 7th. But that used to be my park. I used to go in there all the time, and we used to have a tournament there. And a coach came down, or junior. This guy seen me playing, and he said, "Yo, do you want to go to school?" Or he said, "Are you in school?" And I was like, "No." I said, "I go to a GED school." And he said, "Do you want to go to college?" And I'm like, sure. Because my brother played college basketball. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll go. So I ended up I just got my GED. And so I ended up going, you know, a guy came to see me play. I'm playing in summer league, and I'm playing against guys that were already in college. And just, you know how you this is your opportunity to show what you can do. And so I show what I can do. And I ended up getting a 2-year, I ended up going to JUCO, Westchester Community College, for 2 years. And then from there, I signed a letter of intent to Texas A&M, and I did it early. So I signed in the early period, just not to go through all the recruiting stuff. So I ended up at A&M for 2 years, and you know, coming from where I come from, everybody's dream is to play in NBA, but you know, it wasn't good enough. I got a tryout. I tried out with the New Jersey Nets. At that time, it was New Jersey Nets, and didn't make it. Then so I had to go back to real life. You know what I mean? I had 3 kids at the time. Had to get a job, so I was working. I started working at Toys R Us, and it's funny though. The job, when I got the job, it was right at the right time. It was right around Christmas. So, I'm doing that, and right at the right time, doing that. And just one night, I end up getting targeted, and these guys, guy rolled up on me and my friend, or these guys rolled up and they was in the car and rolled up and took a shot at us, and missed both of us, but somebody else got hit in their foot. After that, I ended up moving to Connecticut to live with my brother. I had a brother in the Navy, one in the Army. They was both living in Connecticut. So I just moved there, which is about 2 hours from New York. So I stayed there, and I was there for about 5 months. I ended up getting a call to play in it was called the WBL. It's the 6'4" and under league. Yeah, so I went and tried out for that. This was in Vegas. I went and tried out and didn't make it. But I got home. I got back to New York. Huh?
You're 6'5", that's why.
No, it wasn't that. It was. I think you can have like one or two players that was like 6'6", 6'7", because it definitely wasn't 6'4". But then he called me back about 2 months, like 2 months later, or not even 2 months, about a month later. The guy calls me back to come play. So I ended up in Vegas, where that was like my first pro league. So I left that and then tried out in the CBA. Actually didn't make the CBA, but then I went back to Vegas the next year and then ended up in the CBA. And I played it my first year in the CBA, I played at Oklahoma City. So Oklahoma City had a CBA team before the NBA team. So I was on that team with I don't know if you know who Charlie Rosen. Charlie Rosen was the head coach. Charlie Rosen and Phil Jackson are best friends. Like Charlie Rosen wrote a book about Phil, and they like best buddies. He was the head coach. And so I played a year, and it's funny how things happened. We had a game and we lost. I fouled a guy, and he ended up winning the game and hitting 2 free throws to win the game. He cut me after the game. Cut me right after the game. Sent me back to New York. And then I get home, I get back to New York. I'm there for 5 days. He called me back. I end up back in Oklahoma City, finished the season in Oklahoma City. And then, so from there, it was Oklahoma City. So I was playing Oklahoma City and I was playing in the WBL. So it was Oklahoma City, during like regular, like when the NBA plays, and then the WBL was during the summer. So I was just going back and forth. And my last year in WBL, it became just a regular league, but it was in Canada. It was a Canadian league. And it was actually called the NBL. And I was having a pretty good year. And I went back to the CBA, and this was my last year in the CBA. I'm starting, having a pretty solid year. And I think we had a game on TV. We played Rapid City. So Rapid City was one of those teams that had all the ex-NBA guys played on this team.
Mm-hmm.
We played them on TV. And I ended up with about 35. I was killing them. No joke. I was absolutely killing them. And then about 2 weeks later, because I actually didn't have an agent. But then this guy who represented a couple of NBA guys calls me and he goes, your name, I keep hearing your name. Who's representing? I said, I don't have a representative. He said, I want to represent you. So he sent me a contract, blah, blah, blah. In less than 2 weeks, he had a deal for me to go to Italy, but the team I was supposed to go to wouldn't take me because I never played over there. So they took this other guy named Dennis Smith. He was actually all right. He ended up going. I don't know how long he stayed over there, but a week after that, I got a call from Brett Brown, and he wanted me to And the thing is funny. I didn't care how much money it was. I just wanted to get out of the CBA.
Yeah. And
then Brett called, and the rest is history. I've been here ever since 1993. Yeah.
That's cool. You go ahead, Dave.
Well, he skipped over the part that he was Euro stepping before there was a Euro step.
What's that?
You were slow. You were the original slow step, Euro step.
I would do everything they do it now. I was doing back then. all the stuff they do it now, I was doing back in the 90s.
Yeah.
So what did you say your guy's name was? Was it Charlie Rosen that you said was friends with Phil?
Charlie Rosen was the head coach. Look him up. Like I said,
I will, but I got to show you something kind of funny. So you say Charlie Rosen was friends with Phil Jackson, and he wrote a book about Phil Jackson. Well, Well, I wrote a book too. It's not exactly about Phil Jackson. I'm going to show you. I don't know if you can see it here or not. I'm going to hold it up. Can you read the title of the book?
My name was Phil Jackson. Would you read this?
That was the book that I wrote a few years ago, because I knew no one would want to read a book about Rick Turner. You know, those books don't sell. So if I could get Phil Jackson, if I could get Phil Jackson in the title, then maybe at least would come up on a Google search.
Somebody will look at it. Yeah, I got you. But I'll read it. Send me one. I'll read it for sure.
That's funny. So what was that like going to Texas A&M from New York? That's a change of pace, man.
Yeah, it was different. And like I was funny that I was down there. I had to go to summer school, so I ended up in Palestine, Texas, for about 6 weeks. So I had to do summer school there. And again, coming from New York, you know, it's country, and you see these pickup trucks with shotguns on them. And again, I'm coming from New York, where, you know, we've seen guns, but we don't see them like that.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Not on the back of trucks where people can see them. So it was different. But, you know, once I got there, it was just, you know, it was basketball. My first year, though, this was my junior year. I ended up getting injured. So I ended up doing my knee and I missed the first couple of games because I did my knee, and it was so frustrating because, you know, how you get injured and you can't play, and now I gotta go to school. I still got to go to school. I still got to take class, but I'm not playing. So I had got to a point where I actually wanted to go back home, and then the coach was like, "Don't do that. Just stay, do your rehab." And I end up finishing the year, and that we actually had a pretty good year because we ended up making the tournament. We finished 8th in our conference, but ended up winning the conference, and, you know, went on to play Duke in the first round, which we didn't pan out too well. But it was good. Like, it was different. The coaches were good.
Yeah. What year is it?
Quinn?
That would have been
Quinn
80.
playing?
Who's that?
Was Quinn Snyder playing?
He played. He was actually a starting guard. He was a starting point guard.
Yeah, he was our nemesis. He was just on the show. Yeah, he was on the show just a little while, right?
Yeah, no, he was a starting point guard. Starting two guard because Tommy Amica was there.
Yeah.
So it was him and Tommy Amica in the backcourt. Gene. I think I can't remember. He was a defensive guy. Gene something. Danny Ferry, and I can't forget who the other guy was. But they beat us. We actually had the first game, or not the first game, but remember in Indianapolis.
Okay.
Yeah, in the Hoosier Dome. Okay. We played in there. That was like one of the first games there. They ended up getting us. But he was on that team. That was 80. That would have been 86, 87, because I finished 87, 88. So that was 86, 87.
Yeah, I think they might have lost in the national championship.
They did.
Was that Final Four?
I think they lost before that.
Was that the Final Four in Dallas?
Huh?
Was that the Final Four that was in Dallas? Do you remember that year?
I can't remember. That team didn't make the Final Four.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the next year. I think it was the next year they made the Final Four. Because next year we played Oklahoma, our first game of the season. And that was the year Oklahoma lost to Kansas in the final in 1998.
So, you know, Dave talked about you being a cerebral point guard, you know, a guy that could not only play it, you know, at a high skill level, but you also thought it and think it and understood. Like, where do you think that came from? Like, is that something that comes natural to guys? Some get it and some don't, or is it taught? Like, where did that come from for you?
I think it's a combination. For me, is I guess I'll say playing on the street. So I was a street ball player. So I picked up a lot of my instincts just playing on the street.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But the game, like I watched a lot of basketball. So that was all I did. You know what I mean. My guy, like George Gervin, was my guy. Like I used to love him, but I always watched Magic Johnson. Like I used to love to watch Magic. You know what I mean? And
did you have the Iceman poster hanging up in your bedroom?
I did. I had that one. Yeah, with the two balls.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah, I had it. I actually still got it. I still got it.
Didn't you wear 44? Did you wear number 44?
I wore 44 at the Tigers.
Yeah, I didn't know this.
So
you wore 10.
I wore 10. So I wore 10 throughout JUCO. I wore 10 throughout college. And then when I got wore 10 here early, but then when I went to the Tigers, I wasn't getting 10 because of Andrew Gaze. So I switched to 44.
We were talking about Andrew a little while ago.
Really, who's that?
We were talking about Andrew just 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So he was talking about was he the one that kind of changed Australia or put basketball on the map in Australia? What do you think?
Yeah, I think he did. No doubt.
Because
because his dad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think Andrew put it on the map. And Andrew ended up going to college in the States.
Yeah.
And then, but for me, I found out about Australia. To be honest, I found out about Australia because of Ricky Grace. Because I actually played. I played against Ricky in college, or I played him against in Juke. I played against him in an All-Star game in junior college, and then he went to Oklahoma. I went to A&M, but we didn't. The game we played, he didn't play because he was injured. But that was Blue Mookie Blaylock, Stacey King, Horace Grant, all those guys was on that team. But I found out about Australia because of him, because I knew they took point guards. So when they told me he was down here, I was like, yeah, I'll definitely go. But Andrew Gaines is synonymous with Australian basketball.
Yeah, for sure. Now I'm gonna ask you this first, Dave, and then I'm gonna ask DMAC after you. But we were talking about Quinn earlier on the show, and conversation over the years it's come up when I've talked to Quinn about coaching and just some various philosophies. Is he always maintained, and this was always a good subject of conversation. He always maintained that you could teach a player, a kid, you could teach them anything. And that there was not that he wouldn't say that there was no such thing as feel, like some have it and some don't. But he said you could teach feel. I don't know, where do you stand on that? Like he really believes that if you're a good enough coach, you can coach anything.
Yeah, that's interesting. I would, if you asked me for like a 2-second answer, I would say, hell no. There's no way you can teach some people feel, because I have a 6'10" guy on my team right now that is ripped and ready for the NBA, but he feels, I don't know, he feels and he still was MVP of the second division, but his body should be MVP of at least. He should be on an NBA team if you saw that guy's body, but he cannot feel the game. So I feel, and I don't know, DMAC knows this guy, I feel like I took him to a new level, like a way better level. But I'm telling you, he is from here to
you talking about Quintella
to Seattle.
You talking about Dane.
So, yeah. Like, I don't know how long you could teach this guy him to understand. He's got a little bit of OCD, so he wants the basketball court to look like the kitchen. So the whole time he doesn't feel the game because he thinks this should be mathematical. And so how do you teach that guy that he should just let the game flow and let it come at him? And I think maybe if you're equipped with 12 to 15 NBA-esque players, you can teach those guys to feel. But maybe that I
think it's hard. You know what I mean? Like, my thing, how do you pick up feel? Like, again, for me, I think it's watching games. I think it's watching players. You know what I mean? That's how I picked up the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, for a point guard, I thought I put it like this. I've seen things that other players didn't see. You get what I mean? And then I also seen play, and I tell point guards this all the time. Try to see the game 2 or 3 passes ahead. You know what I mean? And I think that's feel. A lot of people, I don't know whether you can teach that. I think, you know what I mean? I think you either got it. I think it's hard to teach. but I think you can learn. Like I think you can learn it. You know what I mean?
You can learn
by doing that. You know, doing that kind of.
You know, when Rick asked you about, you know, how you got cerebral, you know, immediately in my mind, I would have been, it was survival, you know, at Rucker Park. Because for me, even though I wasn't at Rucker Park, I was 4 years younger than my older brother, and they always needed one more. So for me to get where I got, it's because I was trying to survive against taller, more athletic, better players. So I was constantly trying to figure out a way to win. I think like whether it was Rucker Park or your older brother.
I was the same as you because I got 7 older brothers.
Yeah. Rucker Park.
You know what I mean? I used to play with them in the same.
Yeah.
And again, I guess the Rucker Park thing was, again, growing up there, it was all about, you know, it's all reputation. And, you know, you got guys coming up, they're trying to take your reputation, and you got to be able to hold that. You got to be able to fight for that. And that's, you know, again, that's, you learn that toughness. You know, you ain't gonna let nobody take nothing from you. You know what I mean? And so you pick up those things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
Rick,
know,
did you play?
Say what?
Did you play rat ball in Seattle? Like down in Kirkland on that?
Yeah. I was in the gym all the time. You know, we were playing dunk hoops, or we were playing open gym, or we were down in the playground, and I wasn't talented like you guys were. So I had to do all the other things, you know, I had to do in order to, I was always the last guy picked, but my teams always won, you know? So because I understood kind of like DMAC, right? Like make the smart play, do the things that no one else will do to help you win. And those, it's like you say, because if you get knocked off the court, you got to sit there and wait for 45 minutes or an hour before you get back on again. You know,
that's the thing. Like, I think that's what taught me to win. Was there was 6 shoes next to the ball if I lost, and I had to sit for like 6 more games if I lost. So there was no way.
It's like that everything. You always try to get on that team. You know that's never gonna lose.
You know, when you get old, you repeat. When you get old, you repeat stories, and I feel like I've said this story a million times, but I'm gonna tell you guys again and kind of circle back to what we were talking about. But the day I left the Seattle SuperSonics, I ran into George Karl in the elevator, and I said to George, and I said, "Hey, Coach, you know, I just put in my 2-week notice. I'm going to set out on a coaching career. You've inspired me, and you know, whatever. Do you have any words of wisdom for me as I set out on this journey?" And he looked at me and he said, "Just keep one thing in mind: your players have to hate you." And I've told that story to many people, and there's always an odd reaction to it, like, what the hell? What? No. But I understood what he meant. You know, I understood that there needed to be a line there between player and coach. And I come back to what we were talking about with Quinn and coaching feel. And I think in some ways, the way I understood it with him, with Quinn, was that if you didn't believe you could teach somebody feel or teach somebody anything, then you were almost kind of giving in. Because how many times as a coach or as a teammate, you've just said, this guy he just doesn't have any feel for it. You know, like I can't help him. He's got no feel. So we're making an excuse. And I just always felt like maybe you can't teach feel, but if you give in to the fact that you can't, then you're kind of almost giving up.
I just don't really like that. I just sit him in the corner and let him shoot. That's it. No decision.
Some of it to Phil, as I think you pick it up. Like I tell kids today, Like we do all, you do drills and all that. I tell you, just go play. Like, just go hoop.
Yeah.
And I think you pick up feel like that. Just playing. Like, no coach telling you to do this, no coach. Just go out there and play. You know what I mean? And you organize individuals, and I always get kids to play 1-on-1, 2-on-2, just hoop. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna tell you to do this, but just get out there and hoop. And that's the difference that we have. A lot of kids don't do that. You know what I mean? Like, you get school holidays over here, and you go in the gym, and there'll be 2 kids in there, and they shooting half-court shots. When you guys are out of school, get a group down, take 10 guys down there, and just play. Just keep, just run up and down and hoop. But that's what a lot of them don't do it. So,
what is that? Is that D-Mac? Is that like 3 old guys talking about how kids just aren't the same anymore, or is it really? Because I see it the same way. Like, I drive by an outdoor court, and this is pre-COVID and everything, and I don't see kids out there, and I don't see guys. I was the telephone guy. I set up all the games. I would be on the phone calling guys, hey, we're gonna be hooping. This is where we're gonna be. This is what time we're gonna be there. And I don't see that. Maybe it's happening. I don't know, but I feel like maybe we're the old men in the Muppet Show up above talking about what a crappy show it is.
Seriously, I don't see enough kids playing, just playing.
Yeah.
That's my thing. You know what I mean? Just going out and hooping. That's what I don't see. And I've been here. I've been saying this for as long as I've been here. Just go play.
Yeah.
Like, don't. I like to play rep and play this, but go. Just go hoop. I think it'll help you. You know what I mean? Like, again, growing up in New York, we in the park every day. Every day. You know what I mean? My mother had to tell my brothers to come get me. The time to eat, go get them. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see that here. That's the difference.
And a lot of times it was hoop that would keep you out of trouble.
Oh, no doubt. Definitely kept me out of trouble. Because I'd be in the park. I stay in the park, leave the park, go home. That's it.
You're still in the gym. You're still coaching people. I said you're still in the gym after all these years.
Yeah, now.
So,
I do a lot of individuals and stuff like that.
Are you coaching a little bit? I should know. I'm sorry, I don't know all your background. Are you coaching some, and if so, where?
Well, I coached. We coached last year. I coached last year. I'm at a junior club called Knox, and I was coaching our senior men's. I coached against Dave. I ain't gonna tell you what they did to us, but we'll leave that one alone. They beat us by like 40. He had my big guy perfectly scouted. Let's let him catch it and deny everybody else, and let him play 1-on-1. And they end up beating us by 40. But again, what happened with that? I just didn't want to do it no more after that, because it became like, again, as a coach, so. You pick your team. I think, this team I put together, I think we're going to be good. I think we can win. You know what I mean? And then when you don't win, it became frustrating. I lost my son, who can play. Like Dave knows him. He can play a little bit. I lost him after our second game. And he was my starting point guard. You know what I mean? And then after he went down, we was playing point guard by committee, but not really, because I didn't have nobody that actually can play the position. So we struggled. And so I got frustrated, and then I'm like, you know what? Because and Dave can tell you, because this league is one of those leagues where, you got guys who, they'll show up when they want. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, a guy's got to work to make money, and then you done put a practice plan together. He texts you 5 minutes before and say, "Oh, I can't make it." It was one of those. It was one of those seasons. I've been doing that for the last 4 years, and I just figure I'm gonna take a break from it. Like, if I would love to get back in NBL as an assistant coach, if I could. But if that doesn't happen, I actually don't want to call. I'm not doing juniors no more, because I don't want to deal with parents. So I'll just do individuals.
It doesn't change anywhere in the world, man. The parents are the toughest part of it. They cost more coaching jobs than administrators and general managers.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Hey, when did I guess one of the cool things about coaching is when the light bulb goes on for a kid, and when they just kind of get it. And you talked about a little bit when I first brought you on, kind of when you were younger, you weren't really getting it. And I'm talking about life, not necessarily basketball. And for whatever reason. You remember when the light bulb went on for you? And was there anything that made it go on? Because some kids they're 12 years old, the light bulb goes on, they know what they want to do, their path is set for the rest of their life. And others, it's not until they're 40, and some I guess never comes on forward. When did that happen for you? Like, it's time to man up.
It came on for me probably when I got that opportunity to go to school. Because I'll tell you, it wasn't something that I thought about. You know what I mean? I'm just I'm just gonna get my GED. Give me a job, play in the summer league. Do the same thing every year. And then when that opportunity to go back to college or to go back to school came, like I said, I didn't really. I just like, it was when he asked me, I was like, yeah, sure, I'll go. But then it actually turned out to be a blessing. You know what I mean? Like I said, this guy saw me. You want to go back to school? Sure. And then I ended up taking that, and end up going to college for 4 years, and playing professional for 20-something years. You know what I mean? So it would have been then. Like my brother played. I used to go to watch all his games. You know what I mean? But you never think, like, I didn't think I was good enough. You know what I mean? Like I thought I was a good street ball player, but can you play college basketball? Like I never even thought about that until the guy asked me if I wanted to go. And then when I got there, I'm thinking, well, this ain't, I ended up being one of our best players. I made All-American my second year, and then went to Texas A&M. And I'm like, you know what? There's an opportunity here. So again, like I said, coming from New York, you think everybody wants your dream is to play in NBA. I'm like, hey, and then that call came to get a tryout. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe maybe things are moving forward. And then didn't happen. I'm like, now it's back to reality. You know what I mean? But then one thing about me, I never stopped playing. So even when I got cut by the Nets, and again, growing up in Harlem, like they want you to be the savior. You know what I mean? You're gonna get everybody out the hood. So you're gonna make the NBA, and then everybody's gonna be out the hood. And then when I didn't make it, everybody was like, oh, you was terrible anyway. We knew you wasn't gonna make it. Get out of here. You know what I mean? They start putting you down. But it didn't deter me. I still played, and I just kept playing. You know what I mean? I still can play. I still continue to play the game. And then, like I said, that opportunity to go, I went to Vegas. I did that, and I was playing 12 months. I was playing like 11 months out of the year. And then the Australian thing came, and then that was it. I've been here. I think even to this day, I thank Brett every day, man. Every time I see him, I thank him for giving me the opportunity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's cool. So I want to ask you about something, DMAC. I'm not sure whether you probably were going to know this guy, but I got to tell you, our buddy Rich was telling me, Dave, that you either know, live next to, or have some kind of relationship with Sedale Threet.
Yeah, he's a good. It was funny because I was talking to him today. He's actually a good friend of mine.
I got to tell you, I loved Sedale Threet when he played for the Sonics. I thought he was just a really underrated player, and loved watching him play. And I had no idea where he was, and then this came up, and he's in Australia. That's cool to hear.
Yeah, he's been here for
a long time. He was my coach. He was my coach. Yeah.
Yeah, he's been here for a while now. And he's doing he's saying just kid development. Like he's not coaching nowhere. Just he just trains kids all the time.
Yeah. What was he like to play for, Dave? What was he like to play for?
So for me, I love it because I have feel, and he coached feel. That's what he coached. He just lets you play the game, which I think is the best way to do it. Except he didn't have enough talent that Quinn has. So there were a couple of us that knew how to play, and then there was 5 or 6 of us that thought the green light meant them, but it didn't. They needed the self-inflicted the red light, but they didn't because Sedell was.
Everybody had the green light.
So he coached us like the NBA, which I loved. I absolutely loved playing for him.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know if even D-Mac knows this, but my point guard was probably our level's best point guard ever. And even though he doesn't attribute his talent to Sedell 3, I was standing right next to him when Sedell was teaching him.
Oh yeah.
Sedell made Shane McDonald, but Shane doesn't say that. But I was there when he was teaching him, and he to Quinn's thing, he taught him feel. Shane had a good basis anyway, but I'm telling you, D-Mac would break a nose if you weren't paying attention a couple passes early. Shane didn't throw it as hard as D-Mac, but he could see the same pass as D-Mac.
Yeah, Shane was tough.
He just wasn't as talented as D-Mac. So, that was the difference. But he could see the floor.
One of the themes, just because of where I'm from, Seattle, and we're kind of a provincial little city here, tucked away in the Northwest. We are so proud of all the players that we produce, and talk about what kind of a hotbed Seattle's become for basketball, and we feel good about it and pat ourselves on the back when we can. But D-Mac, man, there's no pride for hoopers like there is New York pride, is there? I mean,
no.
That you guys would break your arm patting yourself on the back for the hoopers that come out of your area.
Yeah, or you know what? It's New York, Harlem in general wasn't a lot. Like, you know what I mean? Like Steve Burt is probably was our main guy, you know what I mean? Out of Harlem as a Harlem guy.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a couple. It wasn't many, but New York in general. Then Kenny Smith, Mark Jackson, all those guys come out. Pearl Washington.
Yeah.
I used to play. I played against those guys in back in the days. But yeah, New York was. Well, it's the Mecca, man. The Mecca of basketball. That's what people say. It's different now. Like everybody hoops. Every state got players. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we love our New York basketball.
I have a question if I can squeeze in here. So I've known you for 20 years now, somewhere close. And I know, like, when we were talking about pickup games, that if you didn't have a bit of a bravado, you were in a lot of trouble. Like, even if you could outball them, they were really going to out-talk you into some sort of spasm. So you, by far, in my opinion, best, if not the best Australian player I've played with, point guard alone or all over. You don't remember this, but I was telling Rick this. I was coming to the league at 36, and I was stopping to get a coffee, and you were the first teammate I met, and you knew my stats from Siebel and said them to me.
I do remember.
You put me at ease, and I was just like, this guy is so humble, even though I knew you were already a legend. Because at this time, Rick, he was already a legend. And it wasn't like he was still trying to prove himself. Yeah. And, I think it's an important part for athletes to understand. So we're taught on the court to have this, I'm better than you. But how do you think we can teach that to people so that once we step off the court, that we stay, at peace with one another, so to speak, I think it's a great trait of yours. So.
Again, I think is being humble, but what I think is just Australia, man. They can't help themselves.
Yeah,
Aussies. they seriously. I think there's a toughness with Australia that they just don't have that. A lot of them can't. They just can't humble themselves, regardless of how, you know what I mean. Like I just think it's just here. Like we can try to teach it. I mean, for me, like I said, I try to when I'm training kids, I try to teach them, like don't back down. Okay, like because you get, like I said, I watch a lot of I watch the kids from America, and I'm watching all these young kids from America and what they do and how they play, and you try to I want to try to transfer that to over some of these kids over here, and you try to teach them, and then you watch them, and then you watch them play. They just don't have that same kind of that swag, kind of like, yo, you can't guard me. You know what I mean? No matter what you teach them, they don't have it. But then they get older, and you can't tell them nothing. Like they become, you know what I mean? They just don't. You know what I mean? Like they the best thing. It's like they the best thing since sliced bread. And I honestly think that's an Australian thing. You know what I mean? Okay. Like I actually think it's pretty hard. I think it's hard to teach.
I think you should try and teach. Try that.
Hey fellas, we gotta wrap it up, and I'm switching streams here for the final 8 hours of our 24-hour push. So I want to thank you guys so much, DMAC.
Yeah, no problem.
Appreciate it so much for you guys hopping on and taking me through the wee hours of the morning here in Seattle. The cool thing about this is that I kept saying to myself as I was planning for this and deciding how I wanted it to sound and go, and I know that like in this new world of the way media is now, it lives on the internet forever. So for me to say that it's 2:55 in the morning right now is meaningless, because some dude might be watching it a week from now at noon, at his work or whatever. So my misery at 2:55 in the morning is nothing for him, but I appreciate you guys helping me get through it from the other side of the world. And it's great to catch up with you, Dave, for sure. And it's awesome to meet you, DMAC, and we're friends now. And I hope you guys follow Jamaica basketball and cross your fingers for us and root for us for every time, except for when we're playing Australia or maybe even the US, or I don't know, or root for us against them too. But thanks for being a part of it.
No, appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Hands with you, Rick. That's we talked a lot about DMAC and myself, but that's amazing what you're trying to do for your. I mean, it's your country now because you're coaching them, but what you do for these people, that's unbelievable. I hope it all works out, and I feel honored to be asked to be part of this. This is cool.
Yeah, no, me too. Appreciate it. So
that's cool. Let's stay. Hey, we'll stay in touch, guys. Thank you.
See you.
Thank you very much. All right. Take care. Yep. See you later.
See you later.
All right, Dave Buer and Daryl McDonald from Melbourne, Australia, and got to thank them for hopping on.